Thank you, Mr. Chair, for hosting the hearing, and thanks to the three witnesses for being here. I know that most of my colleagues have focused their attention on the report of some pretty troubling personnel management over at the FDIC, from sexual harassment on down, and I share their concerns. And what I want to focus on today is whether some of the problems that have been identified at the FDIC, Chair Gruenberg, actually make it harder for the FDIC to do its very important job in our financial system. And to pick a particular hobby horse, something I've been focused on, as you know, in our private conversations and our public conversations, we have a massive problem and a divergence in public information, public reporting on the failure of First Republic and how it was sold to JPMorgan. And unfortunately, we also have a troubling lack of forthrightness from your agency about some of the underlying justifications for why JPMorgan was allowed to purchase First Republic instead of some of the regional banks that were interested in purchasing it, or instead of another option, more specifically liquidation. So I want to sort of just drill in on something. So in public and in some of our conversations, Chair Gruenberg, you have said that the difference between the loss, if First Republic went to JPMorgan versus a regional bank, the loss spread was $20 billion. Is that correct?
That was one estimate, Senator.
That's one estimate. Other estimates that have been out there have the loss ratio or the loss spread at $1 billion or substantially smaller. And one of the things that I did with Senator Warren, one of the rare acts of bipartisanship on the Banking Committee, is that we sent your office a letter trying to sort of better understand what estimates and what data points went into the least cost analysis that you use to give or to ensure that JPMorgan was allowed to buy First Republic Bank. Now, Chair Gruenberg, what was the FDIC's loss estimate for First Republic's single-family residential portfolio? Do you remember that?
Not offhand, Senator, okay. But I'd be glad to follow up with you.
So happy to jog your memory. So FDIC staff turned over information that suggested your estimate for the single-family residential portfolio of First Republic, the loss there was $30.3 billion, obviously a massive amount of money. Now, based on information that my staff has uncovered, sometimes with cooperation of the FDIC, and sometimes, Chair Gruenberg, with the absence or the opposite of cooperation from the FDIC, we think there's a good amount of evidence that the actual loss in First Republic's single-family residential unit was closer to $11 or $12 billion. In fact, a number of the regional banks who made purchase inquiries for First Republic thought it was closer to $11 or $12 billion. So if you, on the one hand, think that the loss in that one portfolio was $30 billion, and the actual answer was more like $11 or $12 billion, would that lead to a significant difference in how you evaluate the least cost test?
It might, Senator. I don't know offhand the basis for the two estimates. Would obviously have to evaluate that.
So one thing I just want to sort of drill down on is your estimate for the loss from liquidation was $16.2 billion, and the JPMorgan acquisition was $13.6 billion. Now that's a difference of less than $3 billion, but if you assume that the loss in the residential portfolio was $11 billion or even $15 billion instead of $30 billion, the least cost test would have led you to liquidation. And here's the thing that I worry most about. So, Chair Gruenberg, why haven't you responded? Why hasn't the FDIC, why hasn't your staff responded to so many of the inquiries that we've made? Some of the information that I just read back to you is based on conversations with your staff. Some of it is based on conversation with banks or with other offices or with other financial regulators, because the FDIC won't actually answer our questions. And to sort of make this point more specifically, I worry that the culture you've created at the FDIC makes people terrified to answer honestly. And if they're not answering honestly, it's impossible for us to do our job of overseeing the regulation you guys do in the financial sector. So very basic question. Why haven't you guys been more forthright in some of the questions? You just ignoring us? Are you just waiting for more time? Because this is important. I would actually like to know what happened, and I can't figure out what happened because your agency won't give me the answers.
I appreciate the question, Senator. I believe, as you indicate, we've had exchanges. I believe we've tried to respond in writing to the questions you've raised. If they haven't been satisfactory, I'm sorry. We're prepared to engage with you and your staff further if that would be helpful.
Certainly, and I would appreciate that. But just to recap here, Mr. Chairman, I know I'm over my time, so give me, if you would, just a minute here. So to recap, in March of 2023, you and Treasury Secretary Yellen worked with JPMorgan to inject $30 billion into First Republic in a bid to save the bank. It was in complete failure. A month later, First Republic failed anyway. You then allowed the concentration in the financial sector by allowing JPMorgan to purchase First Republic based on a wildly off-base estimate of some of the losses that existed in First Republic. And when our office has actually tried to get information to better understand this, very often we've been steamrolled. If that doesn't suggest a problem in the culture at the FDIC, I don't know what does. And I certainly would love to work with your staff on this, Mr. Gruenberg. I just don't know if you share that commitment. Thank you.